What's going on, everyone? My name's Tenebris Infinite, and today I'm going to show you dudes how to disarm all of the large machines here in Generation 0. You have the ability of turning tanks, harvesters, and the newly introduced wolves into your virtual, basically, pets here in the game. This is also perfect for dealing with rivals and turning them into non-threats, or at least the least amount of threat possible here. And it's also great for doing what is newly introduced lynx farming from the new wolves. Yeah, man, I managed to figure out how to farm the lynx from these guys. So let's get into this video here, and let me show you dudes how to break down these machines without totally destroying them, and then leave them as pretty much harmless machines wandering around your map. So first up, let's cover the tank, because the tank's probably the easiest of these three opponents to disarm in the game. For the tank, there's three components we're going to focus on. The autocannon, the missile pod or mortar or whatever is their secondary, and then the wall of flame, the concussion emitter, or the neurotoxin gas dispenser that is located on the side of the main body. The two components we all know about are the primary and the secondary weapon, the autocannon as well as the mortar. These two things are pretty easy to deal with. For the autocannon, attacking it with any sort of FMJ is actually a very efficient approach. Using armor piercing does not make any sort of difference against this component. But when it comes to the secondary, you can utilize a hollow point and soft point ammunition to remove this weapon a little bit faster. The quick and easy way of disarming any machine in the game is by utilizing EMPs. There are only two machines in the game that are immune to EMPs. That's the Apocalypse Harvester as well as the Reaper. But with every other machine, you can utilize EMPs to stun them in order to get them to stop moving around so much. I know, obvious tips are obvious with that one, but it really makes a difference because it can be kind of hard to visualize the hitboxes of the machine while they're moving around. Sometimes things won't land quite as you would expect according to what you're visually seeing in regards to the bullet and the hitbox of the machine. So EMPing actually does kind of remove that end of things in a big way. So you can see here my kind of order of preference when I've stunned a tank, especially an Apocalypse tank, is by removing their neurotoxin or wall of flame in this instance, or concussion generator off of their body first. This is a small and rather difficult component to hit, so prioritizing it first kind of removes that aspect of things. After that, I'll go for the autocannon, as the autocannon poses the next biggest threat, and then I will go for their secondary weapon. Oh, and there's the tick pod too. You want to remove that as well. But yeah, quick, easy, you could do it in like under 5 minutes to a non-rival. And from this point on, this tank in your map will now be disarmed. If you jump out of the game a little bit too soon without having the game saved properly, he might restore some of his weapons, all depending on where your save point is at in combat. So that's why you want to make sure that you get a good couple saves in the location around the area of this machine, so that way you can make sure that the game is fully, well aware of the damage done to this machine in particular. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the back end of the Avalanche games that have this persistent stuff in their game, but that's just kind of the quick and easy way of going about things. So something else to be aware of with your machine here is that it's going to be very low on health at this point. And especially with tanks where they do their running attack, you'll want to be a little bit careful that they don't kind of blow themselves up off like a stray car or something. Another thing to keep in mind when you're neutering a tank here is the difficulty that you're on. Your difficulty affects the overall component health as well as the overall health of the machine. So if you want to use something like the experimental PVG, you're going to have to bump the game up in your difficulty to something like monkey mode, just to make sure that way you don't totally destroy the machine in the process, because then, like, kind of what's the point of the effort? You could have just nuked him with the PVG in the first place. Though, I'm not gonna lie, you can use this as kind of like a component guide to destroying machines, too. It's kind of pretty cool feeling, I guess, like removing all of their weapons really tactilely and then blowing them up in the end. You know, it's kind of like insult to injury, I guess, to the machines. The benefit of bumping up the difficulty here, though, is that I'm now able to fully utilize the experimental PVG. While I'm taking down the autocannon, I'm also aiming for the tick pod in behind it. But I'm also being kinda careful and mindful that I'm not hitting the fuel cell. This time around, since we aren't using EMPs or anything, I'm going for the autocannon and the missile pod first, in order to kind of draw him a bit closer to me, so that way he'll try to utilize his neurotoxin gas dispenser, and in the process, I'll kind of like Uno reverse card him and remove those components in the process. Seems like he's stuck in the trees here, though, so I'm just gonna kind of snipe out these neurotoxin gas dispensers. But normally what I would have done is I would have let him get like a little bit closer, maybe even let him try to use the neurotoxin gas dispenser and then just kind of like backstep, so that way I could get him into a more opportune position to utilize the Mauser or some sort of a hunting rifle. And your ammunition is something that you actually do have to keep in mind here. So the benefit of soft point ammunition is that it does very high damage to components. It also does pretty heavy damage to the health of the machine, but that's usually just from the component being destroyed in the process. You want to go for hollow point or soft point ammunition when it comes to kind of, I guess, delicate components like the neurotoxin gas dispensers, the concussion actuators, and the wall of flame on tanks. Once you got those off, that's pretty much that. You've got yourself a pet tank. Before I get to my next kind of final piece here, look at how gorgeous this is, man. This sunny rain. Now, here on the prototype tank, I'm showing you dudes where the concussion actuator is. This is going to be on the same place for military tanks. The only thing to remember as you go up through class is the components, of course, also get a health boost through each class. The concussion actuator is this kind of mushroom-looking little cluster piece sitting on the sides of the tank. And when we get to the harvesters, I'll show you the position for the harvesters because it changes up a little bit between the two machines here. The last thing we'll talk about in the tank section here is to kind of think about the class that you're dealing with. 556 does less damage than 762 does, so you'll want to go in with 556 when you're dealing with like military and prototype tanks and harvesters as well. Once you've got the concussion actuators off, that's it. Boom. Prototype pet tank. If there are any other machines that join the fight, if you're trying to disarm a machine, it's good practice to try to go after them, because you never know if they're going to clip the machine that you're going after with friendly fire, and that could potentially lower its health even closer, and you aren't given very much wiggle room with its health after you've taken off all of its weapons and stuff here. The only thing about tanks that makes them not the best pet is that they tend to do this tank rush attack all the time once you've taken off their weapons, so just kind of keep that in mind. Alright, so next up for harvesters, the first thing we're going to disable on the harvester are its rocket pods. And the rocket pods have a shared health pool, so you can attack either one and it just damages the overall pair of rocket pods here. Now, with the rocket pods out of the way, let me show you where the concussion actuators are on the prototype harvester, because it's actually a kind of unique position. When we bust out the binocs here and go into our tech view, the position of the concussion actuators are actually kind of on the joint of their forelegs, kind of like, I guess what would be the harvester's shin joint? They have like two knees. And again, just like with the prototype tanks and the military machines as well, is this little kind of mushroom cluster thing sticking off the machine. It's actually pretty easy to shoot once you know where it is and what to shoot for. The nice thing for harvesters is when they call in their hunter reinforcements, they gain a temporary defense boost to all of their components and their overall health, so you can use this opportunity to take off components, because it just kind of makes the components easier to hit, as well as not potentially destroying the harvester in the process. Once all the hunter reinforcements are gone, you have yourself a friendly, or maybe not so friendly, pet harvester. Looking here on a Phoenix harvester, we can see that the neurotoxin dispensers are actually moved a little bit further up to kind of, I guess, it's so weird. It's like harvesters are real weird. The shoulder of the legs. But anyway, on military and Phoenix and Apocalypse harvesters, this is the component that you're going to want to go for outside of the rocket pods and the tech pod too. On Phoenix harvesters, the way I kind of prioritize the components, and it's the same with Apocalypse too, and pretty much all harvesters, is the rocket pods first, the tick pod second, and then their melee weapon third. For harvesters, I find dealing with these components all at very close range to be probably the easiest approach. As with all harvesters, there is a kind of ramping amount of how many hunter waves are called in as reinforcements. So you just have to kind of fight your way through those waves, and once they're done calling in all of their waves, that's it. They won't call in anymore until you do a fast travel or a quit to menu or something like that. The nice thing too about harvesters in comparison to tanks and wolves is how much health they have in their overall health pool. You can disarm these guys and they have a very decent chunk of health left, so it's probably advisable to start with harvesters before you go on to tanks and especially before you go on to wolves. By the way, if you're wondering, this is just a bug with photo mode in the current version of the game. And then just the last couple things to take note of here with the Apocalypse harvesters. Their neurotoxin dispensers are on the exact same location as the Phoenix ones, but they have a greater health pool. They have those rockets that leave an area of effect damage, and as well, they are immune to EMPs. The hunters can cause a bit of an issue too. Really, the Apocalypse harvester, I think, is like the perfect challenge that you can give yourself if you want a challenging quote-unquote pet to make here in Generation Zero. Going about doing so is the exact same process as with the Phoenix and the military and stuff. You just have to kind of pay mind to the fact that you're going to need to use a lot more health kits for this one. And maybe bring along some of those experimental medical first aid kits, because those can really make a difference. But after you've disarmed the harvester and taken down the last hunter, that's it. If you guys do happen to go out and do this with an Apocalypse harvester, maybe head on over to my Twitter and send me some pictures of it. I would really like to see some screenshots of you guys hanging out with, like, you know, pet harvesters, pet tanks, you know, if you guys go off and do this. Just gonna hang out here for a second while this harvester struggles to get at me. You can't do it, dude. Now, next up for the wolves, instead of just going through the components right off the bat, I'm going to give you guys some, I guess, advisories here in regards to the wolf. So, the first advisory is the wolves that have the cluster mine launchers as well as the, electro discharge attack. These guys currently are a little bit bugged in the fact that when you remove their mortars and you remove the electric discharge, they'll still do that attack afterwards. And this actually is very similar to bugs that were similar with the harvesters and the tanks, especially in year 1. So just something to kind of keep in mind, and hopefully something that'll be fixed soon. It's only this loadout with the wolf that's bugged, so you don't have to worry about any of the other loadouts. Just to kind of show it in action here, just so that you guys know what I'm talking about, we removed the last cluster mine launcher and started working on the shock actuators, and he managed to pull off another mine shot, the cheaty bastard. Devs, please fix. If you're trying to turn a wolf into a pet, make sure that it's not a wolf that's been engaging other machines, because its lower overall health and potential damage to internal components and stuff like that could potentially wind up with you just wasting your time and killing a machine that you were trying to keep around. And lastly here, wolves actually, in my opinion, have lower overall HP than tanks, which means that they have far less overall HP in comparison to a harvester. So that means, sadly, you can't disarm a scout class wolf without killing it in the process. You can't even do this with the molar PP on these guys. It's really interesting, actually. I totally thought that these guys would have been above a tank when we got the preview of them, but to find out that they're actually below a tank is more spicy and more interesting to me. I like seeing the kind of middle section of Generation Zero being filled out here by these Soviet machines. So, for this example, we're just going to look at the Spetsnaz class wolf. You can do this with soldier class wolves as well, just again, try to be mindful of the lower HP count. But the components are all the same between these guys, so you don't have to worry about component positions. As well, the soldier class cannot have the cluster mine launcher or the shock actuator, so you don't have to worry about that issue either. First things first, when the wolf is in its tank form or down on its treads and stuff, the first thing you want to go for are its missile pods, so that way you can remove its opportunity to attack you. Now, sometimes it will pop up into its assault stance pretty quickly. From that point, you kind of have to prioritize based on your own opinion and based on the kind of battlefield that you're fighting with. If you're in a very open area, you probably want to go for that Gatling gun and make some serious distance between you and that dude. But if you have good cover, then you might want to still go for the missile pods, as they're way up above you and really easy targets to hit. And this is why Generation Zero is such a dang good game all these years later. It's that combat is so reactive. It's so, in the moment, and you have to really be able to be aware of the environment you're using and the way the machines are, engaging you and stuff like that. And when it comes to the links that the wolf drops, you want to kind of multitask between the wolf and the lynx, dealing with both of them at as much of the same time as you can. When the wolf's in his assault stance, I tend to try to really prioritize on that Gatling gun, because it's gonna be the worst part. It kills you so quickly. Doesn't matter the difficulty, it just melts your health. And this is a full Vanguard build, the Reaper Buster build, plus an extra 25% of bullet damage reduction, and you still die no matter what, man. Even when you're using the advanced medkits, it's so much freaking damage, man. Anyway, if you can get yourself into a position where you're guarded from the minigun, then you can start targeting the recovery field emitters and the neurotoxin dispensers on these guys. They don't always have the recovery field emitters, but they will always have the neurotoxin dispensers on the ones with the missile pods. At least for now. Maybe in the future we'll see Soviet machines, or at least Soviet wolves, have their loadouts randomized even further. I mean, dude, imagine a Soviet machine with like a rail gun. He busts out into assault mode, and instead of a Gatling gun, it's just this giant ass like rail gun. It would be sick. But anyway, a little bit of words to the wise. The nano field recovery emitter, the healing thing, it actually doesn't seem to heal the wolf itself. It seems to only heal the machines around it, from my findings here. You would think that it would be healing itself, and I think if the devs can do it, it would be kind of cool to see it heal itself too. I'd be okay with an enemy like that. That would make the wolves with the nano field recovery emitter that much more fearsome. But really, the wolves, unlike the tanks and the harvesters that start to kind of do their melee attacks a lot more often when they're in close range, the wolves are a little bit more docile and a little bit more chillin' to hang around with. And again, you know, the link to my Twitter will be down in the description below. If you can get any cool shots with any of the wolves or anything like that, that would be pretty awesome. If you manage to get a scout wolf, I guess you could potentially do it if you got like a scout rival. I didn't test that. There you go. If you could get like a scout wolf and take a picture with him, that would be kind of cool. So now that we've covered how to totally disarm the wolves, I'm going to show you guys something very interesting that you can do now alongside the harvester hunter farming. You can now do lynx wolf farming. Or just more easily, lynx farming. This is easiest done with a rival wolf so that way you could track them on the map and kind of keep tabs on where they're at. All you have to do is go off and fully disarm the wolf like we just went through. And then, again, just like with the tanks and the harvesters, make extra sure that your game has saved. Go around, loot a whole bunch of stuff, go off into a safe house, because entering a safe house saves the game. Opening up your inventory and moving items around in and out of your loadout will also save the game, or dropping items on the ground or whatever. Opening up your plunder will save the game. Interacting with your crafting stations, tons of things save the game in this game. So make sure that your game's saved very solidly, so that way none of the damage that you've done to this machine is undone, and then quit to menu. Sadly though, the wolves do not play fetch. Now, the cool thing is that when you quit to menu and jump back into the game, the wolf will stay in its tank form because it no longer has a Gatling gun to use in assault form, so it just stays in its tank form. And I really do enjoy this, actually. It's kind of cool, and it lets you appreciate both of its forms. So when you take out its weapons and stuff like that, it'll be in assault form until you quit to menu, or I believe fast travel. So now, at this point, farming the lynx from this guy is just as simple as the harvester hunter farming. You'll go off to this dude, he'll poop out a whole bunch of lynx, you could take them all out really quickly and really efficiently, and the benefit of this is farming accelerant and also advanced medkits. But I'm going to have a separate video on that very soon, so stay tuned for that one. So there you go, my dudes, how to disarm every single big machine in the game. And I haven't done the little machines because they're like, one, too fragile, and two, too volatile. Once you remove their main guns, a lot of times they just start doing their melee attacks like crazy. So there's nothing fun about a pet that's gonna be just really going at you. At least with these bigger machines, they can actually be pretty chillin' to hang out with. And as I said along the way here, really good for photo mode. So, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you want to stick around, maybe consider subscribing. But for now, stay awesome, my dudes, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace.